Chapter 5 The Way. The next day, little Willie met the situation head on, or at least he wanted to, but he wasn't sure just what to do. Where was he going to get $500? Grandfather had always said, "Where there's a will, there's a way." Little Willie had the will. Now all he needed to do was find the way. "Of all the stupid things," cried Doc Smith, "not paying his taxes? Let this be a lesson to you, Willie." "But the potatoes barely bring in enough money to live on," explained little Willie. "We went broke last year." "Doesn't matter. Taxes gotta be paid whether we like it or not. And believe me, I don't know of anybody who likes it." "Then why do we have them in the first place?" "Because it's the way the state gets its money." "Why don't they grow potatoes like Grandfather does?" Doc Smith laughed. "They have more important things to do than grow potatoes," she explained. "Like what?" "Like taking care of us. Grandfather says we should take care of ourselves." "But not all people can take care of themselves, like the sick, like your grandfather." "I can take care of him. He took care of me when my mother died. Now I'm taking care of him." "But what if something could happen to you?" "Oh." Little Willie thought about this. They walked over to the sled where Searchlight was waiting. Doc Smith's high boots sinking into the soft snow with each step. Little Willie brushed the snow off Searchlight's back. Then he asked, "All in all, this money is the reason Grandfather got sick, isn't it?" "I believe it is, Willie," she agreed. "So if I pay the taxes, Grandfather'll get better, won't he?" Doc Smith rubbed the wrinkles below her eyes. "You just better do what I told you before. Let Mrs. Peacock take care of your grandfather. And, but he will. He'll get better, won't he?" "Yeah, I'm sure he would. But child, where are you going to get $500? "I don't know, but I will. You'll see." That afternoon, little Willie stepped into the bank wearing his blue suit and his blue tie. His hair was so slicked down that it looked like wet paint. He asked to see Mr. Foster, the president of the bank. Mr. Foster was a big man with a big cigar stuck right in the center of his big mouth. When he talked, the cigar bobbled up and down, and little Willie wondered why the ash didn't fall off the end of it. Little Willie showed Mr. Foster the papers from Grandfather's strong box and told him everything Clifford Snyder, the tax man, had said. "Sell," Mr. Foster recommended after studying the papers. The cigar bobbled up and down. "Sell the farm and pay the taxes. If you don't, they can take the farm away from you. They have the right." "I'll be 11 next year. I'll grow more potatoes than anybody's ever seen. You'll see." "You need $500, Willie. Do you know how much that is? And anyway, there isn't enough time. Of course, the bank could loan you the money, but how would you pay it back? Then what about next year? No, I say sell before you end up with nothing." The cigar ash fell onto the desk. "I have $50 in my savings account." "I'm sorry, Willie," Mr. Foster said as he wiped the ash off onto the floor. As little Willie walked out of the bank with his head down, Searchlight greeted him by placing two muddy paws on his chest. Little Willie smiled and grabbed Searchlight round the neck and squeezed her as hard as he could. "We'll do it, girl. You and me. We'll find the way." The next day, little Willie talked to everybody he could think of. He talked with his teacher, Miss Williams. He talked with Lester at the general store. He even talked with Hank, who swept up over at the post office. They all agreed. Sell the farm. That was the only answer. There was only one person left to talk to, if only he could. "Should we sell?" little Willie asked. Palm up meant yes. Palm down meant no. Grandfather's hand lay motionless on the bed. Searchlight barked. Grandfather's fingers twitched, but that was all. Things looked hopeless. And then little Willie found the way. Come on. He was at Lester's General Store when it happened, when he saw the poster. Every February, the National Dog Sled Races were held in Jackson, Wyoming. People came all over to enter the race. And some of the finest dog teams in the country were represented. It was an open race. Any number of dogs could be entered, even one. The race covered 10 miles of snow-covered countryside, starting and ending on Main Street, right in front of the old church. There was a cash prize for the winner. The amount varied from year to year. This year, it just happened to be $500. Sure, Lester said as he pried the nail loose and handed little Willie the poster. I'll pick up another at the mayor's office. Lester was skinny but strong, wore a white apron, and talked with saliva on his lips. Gonna be a good one this year. They say that mountain man, the Indian called Stone Fox, might come. Never lost a race. No wonder with 5 Samoyed. But little Willie wasn't listening as he ran out of the store, clutching the poster in his hand. Thank you, Lester, thank you. Grandfather's eyes were fixed on the ceiling. Little Willie had to stand on his toes in order to position the poster directly in front of Grandfather's face. I'll win, little Willie said. You'll see. They'll never take this farm away. Searchlight barked and put one paw up on the bed. Grandfather closed his eyes, squeezing out a tear that rolled down and filled up his ear. Little Willie gave Grandfather a big hug, and Searchlight barked again. Chapter 6, Stone Fox. Little Willie went to see Mayor Smiley at the City Hall building in town to sign up for the race. The mayor's office was large and smelled like hair tonic. The mayor sat in a bright red chair with his feet on his desk. There was nothing on the desk except the mayor's feet. We have a race for you youngsters 1 hour before, Mayor Smiley mopped sweat from his neck with a silk handkerchief, although little Willie thought it was quite cool in the room. I want to enter the real race, Mr. Mayor. You must be funnin', boy. The mayor laughed twice and blotted his neck. Anyway, there's an entrance fee. How much? $50. Little Willie was stunned. That was a lot of money just to enter a race. But he was determined. He ran across the street to the bank. Don't be stupid, Mr. Foster told little Willie. This is not a race for amateurs. Some of the best dog teams in the Northwest will be entering. I have Searchlight. We go fast as lightning. Really, Mr. Foster, we do. Mr. Foster shook his head. You don't stand a chance of winning. Yes, we do. Willie, the money in your savings account is for your college education. You know I can't give it to you. You have to. I do? It's my money. Little Willie left the bank with a stack of $10 gold pieces, 5 of them to be exact. He walked into the mayor's office and plopped the coins down on the mayor's desk. Me and Searchlight are going to win that $500, Mr. Mayor. You'll see. Everybody'll see. Mayor Smiley counted the money, wiped his neck, and entered little Willie in the race. When little Willie stepped out of the City Hall building, he felt 10 feet tall. He looked up and down the snow-covered street. He was grinning from ear to ear. Searchlight walked over and stood in front of the sled, waiting to be hitched up. But little Willie wasn't ready to go yet. He put his thumbs in his belt loops and he let the sun warm his face. He felt great. In his pocket was a map Mayor Smiley had given him showing the 10 miles the race covered. Down Main Street, right on North Road, little Willie could hardly hold back his excitement. 5 miles of the race he traveled every day and knew with his eyes closed. The last 5 miles were back into town along South Road, which was mostly straight and flat. It's speed that would count here, and with the lead he knew he could get in the first 5 miles, little Willie was sure he could win. As little Willie hitched Searchlight to the sled, something down at the end of the street, some moving objects, caught his eyes. They were difficult to see because they were all white. There were 5 of them, and they were beautiful. In fact, they were the most beautiful Samoyeds little Willie had ever seen. The dogs held their heads up proudly and strutted in unison. They pulled a large but lightly constructed sled. They also pulled a large, but by no means lightly constructed, man. Way down at the end of the street, the man looked normal, but as the sled got closer, the man got bigger and bigger. The man was an Indian, dressed in furs and leather with moccasins that came all the way up to his knees. His skin was dark, his hair was dark, and he wore a dark-colored headband. His eyes sparkled in the sunlight, but the rest of his face was as hard as stone. The sled came to a stop right next to little Willie. The boy's mouth hung open as he tilted his head back to look up at the man. Little Willie had never seen a giant before. Gosh, little Willie gasped. The Indian looked at little Willie. His face was solid granite, but his eyes were alive and cunning. Howdy, little Willie blurted out, and he gave a nervous smile. But the Indian said nothing. His eyes shifted to Searchlight, who let out a soft moan but did not bark. The giant walked into the City Hall building. Word that Stone Fox had entered the race sped throughout the town of Jackson within the hour, and throughout the state of Wyoming within the day. Stories and legends about the awesome mountain man followed shortly. Little Willie heard many of them at Lester's General Store. Was this time in Denver he snapped a man's back with 2 fingers, said Dusty, the town drunk, but nobody believed him, really. Little Willie learned that no white man had ever heard Stone Fox talk. Stone Fox refused to speak with the white man because of the treatment his people had received. His tribe, the Shoshone, were peaceful seed gatherers, had been forced to leave Utah and settle on a reservation in Wyoming with another tribe called the Arapaho. Stone Fox's dream was for his people to return to their homeland. Stone Fox was using the money he won from racing to simply buy the land back. He had already purchased 4 farms and over 200 acres. That Stone Fox was smart, all right. In the next week, little Willie and Searchlight went over the 10-mile track every day until they knew every inch of it by heart. Stone Fox hardly practiced at all. In fact, little Willie only saw Stone Fox do the course once, and then he sure wasn't going very fast. The race was scheduled for Saturday morning at 10 o'clock. Only 9 sleds were entered. Mayor Smiley had hoped for more contestants, but after Stone Fox had entered, well, you couldn't blame people for wanting to save their money. It was true Stone Fox had never lost a race, but little Willie wasn't worried. He had made up his mind to win, and nothing was going to stop him, not even Stone Fox.